Hello and welcome to WeTalk. This is a We Village Members Marketplace initiative. And for WeTalk, that's exactly what we are going to do. We are going to be talking, we are going to be discussing um, various issues as it relates to food and agriculture. But what we really will be focusing on this channel or in this series is food security. And we know food security is a big buzzword right now for many countries around the world, many nations like our own Trinidad and Tobago. The pandemic we just came out of or we are coming out of has really shook us up and made us quite aware of how we are positioned with respect to food security. It would have made a lot of people more aware of food security and how food gets to them, right? We would have seen instances where people had money to buy food, but the food was just not available. And we saw some positives come out of that. A lot of people would have started their kitchen gardens once more because, at some point, kitchen gardens were no longer fashionable. I can say for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, over the years, over the decades, we have seen a trend where people have been cutting down the fruit trees in particular in their yards because, back in the day, basically every Trini home would have fruit trees, right? Things like mangoes, the basics, guava, you'd have a coconut tree. And when we say mango, the average yard would probably have about 2 to 3 different types of mango trees, right? So it was very commonplace and normal for us to have fruit trees. But as trends changed, people started complaining. All of a sudden, flies were a problem because fruits attract flies. So we started cutting down our fruit trees, or neighbors would complain because leaves falling in their yards and all sorts of foolishness, right? And we started to get much more comfortable with buying fruits like bananas and apples and things that we import, right? And we started seeing less and less and less of our local fruits. We would have enjoyed a greater variety of fresh, what we might even consider organic fruits. But because of trends and because of culture and these different dynamics, we moved away from these things, right? And we embraced a different sort of lifestyle. And I think the pandemic has shown us that this was not necessarily a good move over the long term. All right, so we would be talking food security today, practical food security. And the whole idea of practical food security is we want to move this from something that is just talked about or passed around like a political football to something that we can implement, right? If food security for you is something that is solely in the hands of the government, well, then do your best to put as much pressure on them as possible. However, because the earth was made for food production, and most of us, probably all of us who would listen to this, have access to some sort of space, then we recognize it is within the hands of all of us to produce food at some level. So the idea for us is let's not just put something this serious into the hands or completely in the hands of someone else or some other organization or some other entity. Let us take more control over not only what is produced, but also what goes into our bodies. So again, this is a We Village initiative. We Village is an arm of our homegrown business solutions company. And We Village was specifically started to focus on food security, right? And again, we see the term practical food security. So the goal of We Village is achieving food security for all families. This thing about there is not enough for all, this is really not true. There's more than enough, because when you look at the ones who have very little compared to the ones who have so much that they cannot even use it. It's not so much a matter of there not being enough. It is more a matter of how the resources are utilized, how they are shared, how they are managed, and the mindsets of people, right? So we do believe that food security for all is something that we can achieve, and it is something that we should pursue. So our practical food security approach targets the working middle class and beyond, right? We are not really trying to put this burden on the people who are already poor and struggling just to survive. Because most often the ones who are more likely to be wasting, who are more likely to be in a position where they can help somebody else, are the people in this category, right? So the idea now is not to try to guilt people or beat people over the head. All we want to do is provide simple solutions that be food secure, meaning those that not hungry, those that not suffering, those that not really wondering where the next meal is going to come from, so that these people can implement solutions for us to implement to increase food and nutrition availability. Food security for us is treated as a community initiative, and communities comprise families of varying levels of food and nutrition needs. So when we say we treat it as a community initiative, we want us to start looking at food security as not just something that pertains to our own individual families, right? If I am already food secure, then that is great. But what can I do now to help some other family that may not be at that level? So this is why we talk about We Village. You know, there's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we have taken it a bit further. We say it takes a village to raise a society, because children make up families. Families is what make up communities, and communities is what build society. So if I only think about my households and my needs, then I'm not really part of the village. But when I see the other families, especially in my own space, my own network, right? My own environment. When I see these families as also part of my village, then I care about their needs as well. I care about if they eaten and what they eaten, right? So we want food security to be treated as a community thing and not just food secure for the individuals. And we also believe that we have all the resources we need. And for us, this is very important. Over the years, looking at food and agriculture, one of the most positive things that I have taken out of that, even as I look at my beautiful Trinidad and Tobago, and even the wider Caribbean, I can say we do have all the resources that we need. So it's not that we are lacking resources. What we need to do is to find a way to focus these resources, to unify these resources in a way that helps us to achieve this objective, right? So we're not lacking anything. What we need to do is pull the different people, pull the different spaces and finances and technologies and organizations and all these different things that are already there. Pull these things together now, right, to achieve a common goal. So this is the first initiative we are putting on the table. And at this point, I want to say a big thank you to Mrs. Homegrown Village Solutions, Mrs. We Village, right? Mrs. Joseph, who over the years, one thing she has always said and kept saying to me is, don't stop talking. Even when I felt like giving up, even when I wondered, who am I talking to? You know, you have these ideas, you're putting things out there, and like it falling on deaf ears. But she always said, you know what? Don't stop talking. And sometimes, even with our ideas, we can feel so protective of them. Well, I don't want to put it out there because next thing somebody steals my idea. But really, ideas don't belong to any one individual, right? This is something we are passionate about. We believe that we are here, we are put here on the earth to be part of the solution. And the whole point of sharing and speaking is to look for like-minded people that we can partner with so that we could work together to make this thing a reality, right? So we're going to be discussing foodscaping, which is more than landscaping, right? And you would recognize, I think basically everything we are going to speak about is not anything novel, is not anything new, it is not anything out of this world. It's simple things, things that already exist that we can start implementing. So foodscaping is a modern term for the practice of integrated edible plants into ornamental landscapes. It is also referred to as edible landscaping and has been described as a crossbreed between landscaping and farming. Now, truth be told, when the foodscaping terminology came to my mind, I didn't even look it up, right? I'm sure it's something that existed, but I didn't look for a definition. It is only today I actually looked it up and I took this definition. And this is why I'm saying ideas really don't belong to any one individual. So this is something that is already out there. There are people probably already doing this, right? So let us see how we could take this concept and practically apply it to our environment. So what is our foodscaping concept about? Well, number one, our target. We're targeting people, families, and organizations that are already devoting finances to landscaping, even if it is a simple thing as paying the guy to come and cut your lawn every month or twice for the month, right? So there are people and there are organizations already spending money on landscaping. Primarily, we are talking to this group of people. You're devoting money to this thing anyhow, right? Now, the aim is to encourage this group to divert a portion of their landscaping budget and available yard space to producing food. We love to see a well-manicured lawn, right? We love to see pretty plants and flowers. All these things are well and good, right? However, we should pay more attention to recognizing that this is a resource that we have that can be producing food. And again, the people I am talking to here, you all are probably already food secure. The organizations, they're probably already food secure. So this is not a matter of really producing food to feed yourself, right? It is recognizing that you have a resource that you can utilize to help others. So let's look at even look at this at a corporate level, right? So you have your corporate image to manage. You're looking at corporate responsibility. You want to add to the community. You may be starting initiatives that you have to create a whole new budget for, right? In order to do some of these things. Here we are saying, look, if you are already paying for landscaping, why not take part of that, even if it may mean adding a little bit more to the budget to now start growing and producing food, right? because this is one way you can definitely be a corporate entity that is taking and showing responsibility for your direct community, right? Because depending on where you are, or most likely wherever you are, there would be people and families around you that could benefit from having more food, more healthy food being made available for them. So we are encouraging those of you who are already spending money to cut your lawns, to trim your plants, right? To produce nice, beautiful landscapes, to consider utilizing some of that, right, for the purpose of producing food. So having said that, a foodscaping service can now be created to manage and do the work of the setup and the maintenance of the food production areas. We are not telling you, you grow the food. The reality is most people do not want to be farmers, right? There are people who do it as a hobby. They enjoy it. They love it. But for more so those in the urban centers, this is not something that you want to do yourself. The free time that you have available, you probably already have other things that you want to do with that free time. And that is fine. That is all well and good, because remember, you are already spending money to maintain that lawn, to maintain that landscaping, right? So just as you're paying the landscapers, now let's see if a service can be created. So you will pay the foodscapers, right, to do the same thing, except they are now integrating food production into that system. So the creation of a foodscaping service will also help reduce the individual operating costs and improve efficiency. In conversation recently, I told someone, I said, look, 1,000 farmers with 5 acres of land is not the same as one farmer with 5,000 acres, right? And these are some of the principles that we would also be looking at when it comes to the practical food security. What am I saying? If we have 100 people interested in this, and these 100 people just try to go and do this on an individual level, that is good, right? But it may cost each individual person more. Whereas if a service is created, a business is formed out of this, then the business system would make it cheaper per person to get involved, right? And it would also make it more efficient, right? So there is great benefit to creating a service out of this, because part of our practical food security initiative or food security approach is understanding that many niche businesses can be created out of this. So we'll have more businesses being dedicated to food production and the processing of this food to make value-added products. So this is one entity or one business that can come out of our practical food security approach. So foodscaping done this way will not be as burdensome as trying to get our target market to grow the food themselves. Because as we already mentioned, not everybody wants to be a farmer. And most likely the people that move into or buy into urban environments, they didn't do that to become farmers. You more find the people who live in what we call the country areas, or people who migrate into these areas. They do so with the intention that they want to have a more intimate relationship with the land, right? And this is good, and we welcome these people. I think we ourselves personally would fall in that category as well. That is the dream for us, our own estate. However, the people in the urban and city areas can also play a key role in food production. And this is one of the ways in which that could be achieved. So, what are some practical steps, or what are some action steps that can be taken? Well, first of all, let's find out which of you, right, would be interested in a foodscaping service. And to do that, we ourselves will be doing a little questionnaire. You would find the link to that questionnaire in the description on this video, right? So fill it out, whether it is on an individual level, you or your family, right? Or whether you are a corporate entity, you have a business, and you are saying, you know what? Yes, definitely. I think food scaping is something we can add, right, to what we do as a business in order to provide more value to our communities. So let's also find out which businesses and organizations are interested in a foodscaping service. After that, what do? Create the foodscaping team, right? And we could launch now pilot projects with the persons that showed interest. Because guess what? Just as many of us are already in jobs, already doing things that we're passionate about, there are people who are passionate about growing food. And one of the things we recognize is, in terms of farming and food production, because of how a lot of the businesses, the farms, the systems are set up, the people who actually love doing these things, there's not enough work for them, right? And there is not enough consistency. This is something that would provide monthly employment. It would provide monthly income, because this is not something you just do and you leave it alone, right? Because the same way all that care is taken with your landscaping, it is the same way with this. And not only that, when you look at how this would be run, it would actually look more like what we would do with in permaculture or with the food forest, because regular pruning is a big part of that. And then this pruned material could now be diverted into composting projects, right? So we keep that cycle going. So there are people who absolutely love doing this type of work, but there's just not enough work for them. So we would also be helping to create employment and open doors for people who love being in the open, in the outdoors, right? Working on plants and taking care of them. So the next part would be now to grow and scale that foodscaping service. So this is part one, or video one, of our practical food security series. Something else we would be doing, we already started working on this project. We would be releasing a practical food security ebook. So you could probably pre-order, right? Purchase it when it comes out. All this will help us do what we need to do. We have our WeVillage marketplace. This link will be in the description as well. So we will put more info about how you can support. All right. So this was foodscaping. I'm not sure what topic we would do next, but look out for more, because there's many things we can do. So as we said, if you are already spending money to cut your lawn, spending money to have your nice plants, pretty plants and flowering plants trimmed and pruned, if you are a business that is already spending money to take care of that landscaping, then consider foodscaping as an alternative, as something that can be integrated to what you are already doing. And believe me, this is going to be a tremendous help in getting more healthy, nutritious food to families that need it. So thank you very much, and subscribe to this channel and keep following WeVillage as we continue this discussion on food security. So this has been WeTalk from WeVillage. Look forward to sharing more with you next time.